Joining me today on the Capital Show, Harley Lippman. He's a philanthropist and founder CEO of Genesis 10. You are most welcome here.
Thank you.
Harley, you were the sole owner of Triad Data, an information technology consulting firm. In the late 1990s, you founded Genesis 10. What is the nature of this business, and can you tell us more about this success story?
Yes, my first company, Triad Data, and Genesis 10 are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
They're IT, staffing, and consulting companies. That means when you think of technology today, there are three buckets: hardware, software, services. We're in the services side. So we provide people. And today, there's always going to be a technology component. And what we do is we provide people that will help companies get to wherever they need to go better, quicker, or cheaper.
That's wonderful. Good introduction. Let's talk in politics. The world is watching the Gaza war. The media has an overwhelming coverage of it. You have a keen interest in the Middle East. What is your views on the situation there?
Well, it depends where we could begin on that. I have many views, but I'll tell you, and just so I don't go on too much, because this is an area that I have a great deal of interest in, and I'm speaking a lot on television about it. My view on the Gaza war is the following. One is that let's look at the Palestinians for a moment. Who's more pro-Palestinian, Israel or Hamas? Let's start with that, because we all know what happened, that Hamas crossed the border on October 7th, slaughtered nearly 1,200 Israelis, most of them civilians, raped women multiple times, tortured people, burned families alive. I have to say that because this is not a typical war. This was a massacre. And the intention of Hamas was to inflict as much pain for as long as possible, which is something new in the Middle East. In all the years of conflict, that never existed before. So it's really quite significant. So I started with the idea of who's more pro-Palestinian, Hamas or Israel? Let's start with that. Well, Hamas, by their own statements, do not, well, let me even back up further. If you would ask a Palestinian what's most important to them, probably one of the things they'll say is a nation of my own. Well, Hamas does not want a Palestinian nation. Israel has no problem with a Palestinian nation. And I think it's important to go back to that and go back to it historically. In 1947, 1948, the UN came in to try to look at the conflict. How do they resolve it? And the UN commission that was looking at it was made up of, I don't remember how many, but something like 12 or 15 countries. No Jews were on this commission. It was made up of Christians and Muslims. Iran was on this commission. Indonesia was on this commission, Muslim nations. And they basically decided that there are two peoples that both have legitimate rights to a country of their own.
So you think with Netanyahu government, there is hope for two-state solution now?
Well, I'll get into that in a moment. Yes, you asked the right question. You want me to do that? I do think there is, but I'll explain the problems with that. The reason why I'm going back historically, because I think it's important to mention, is that they decided that both peoples have a legitimate right to a country of their own. Israel had no problem with it. They said yes. Why I say that is they were not against a Palestinian nation. What happened was it was supposed to be the West Bank and Gaza Strip was supposed to be, they called it an Arab country. They didn't use the word Palestine then. That was supposed to be Palestine as we understand it. So what happened? What happened is the Arab world rejected the idea of a Jewish nation. 5 Arab armies invaded Israel to destroy it. They failed. Israel won. So what happened to the land that was supposed to be a Palestine? Jordan took the West Bank. That was supposed to be a Palestinian country. The very area of land that's being fought over today with settlers and with and the Palestinian Authority. And Gaza was supposed to also be part of Palestine. And who took that away? Egypt. The reason why I'm saying it, it's the Arab world that stopped the Palestinian people from having a country of their own, not Israel. So I think that's important to give historical background because, because when people talk about the Gaza conflict, it's viewed as Israel versus Palestinian. I don't see it that way. I see it as Hamas is a ISIS-type organization that wants a caliphate. They
Yeah.
don't want a Palestine.
So do you think that Iran is in this conflict indirectly?
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. I think the idea was created in Moscow, orchestrated by Iran and implemented by Hamas. Why Moscow? Because they've been fighting a war for 2 years. It's been stagnant. They meet every day, Putin with his generals. How do we do better against Ukraine? And obviously, one of the best ways is to get a major distraction. Let's distract the United States from Ukraine. Let's get the United States to want to give money somewhere else other than Ukraine. So this was a brilliant idea to distract attention from Ukraine on many levels. So I think, and yes, and I'm going to say one other difference. Where Russia wants to subjugate the people of Ukraine, China wants to subjugate the people of Taiwan, Iran wants to exterminate the people in Israel. They say it themselves. This isn't me saying it. Just read the Iranian press. They say it all the time.
Yeah, of course.
So, so I think that's what, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, let's talk about holding Israel accountable.
Okay.
What do you think about this? It's feasible or
Of
is
course it is. Look, Israel can't just do whatever they want. Israel makes mistakes. No question about it. But everything has to be looked at in its entirety. One, who started this? It was Hamas. Not one Palestinian child or woman would be dead today if Hamas didn't cross the border and start a war. And just take Israel out of the equation. So you know I'm not just being pro-Israel. If you took any two countries, Portugal and Spain, Brazil and Argentina, pick any two. If one country attacked another and massacred its civilian population like that, remember in 9/11, 3,000 Americans died from a country thousands of miles away. The equivalent in Israel in percentage of population would be the equivalent of 45,000 Israelis being killed. So this was a huge blow to Israel. You have to realize this isn't just some border conflict, some little excursion, because there had been many battles before where Hamas fires rockets into Israel, Israel fires back, and that ends it for a while. So Israel, yes, now Israel has to follow international rules and norms, but I think they're doing it. Here's what happens. Israel will they've sent 12 million robo-text calls telling people to leave the apartment building or leave the house.
yeah,
Now,
it's kind
what nation does that? I want to tell you why that's so significant. Because when they do that, the Hamas fighters with their weapons leave the building. And Israeli generals have been arguing fiercely, saying, we shouldn't do this. But Israel decided in the end, it's more important. We don't want to kill innocent Palestinians. It doesn't, why would Israel want to do that? All it does is turn everybody against Israel. Israel's viewed as a pariah in the world. They're creating more terrorists by killing civilians. It's not in Israel's interest to do it. But Hamas has exploited the Palestinian people, deliberately knowing they cannot defeat Israel on the battlefield. They don't have F-35 fighter jets. So they're trying to defeat Israel in the eyes of public relations very effectively.
Yeah, I need to talk about many things in the Middle East, especially there is many players like the pro-Iran Houthi militias. They have been launching missiles attacks on ships, Israeli ships or ships passing through the Red Sea. So what is your assessment for the United States reaction on putting the Houthis on FTO list or fighting back? What is your opinion here?
Okay, to me, it's very simple. Trade around the world, free trade is how the world operates, right? Every country's trading with each other. And 80% of all trade in the world is done on the ocean, maritime trade. So the Houthis are creating huge problems. The cost of freight has gone up 4 times. The cost of insurance for shipping going through the Red Sea has gone up dramatically. The Egyptian economy is suffering terribly as people are avoiding that area. There are huge problems with that. This is bigger than Israel and the United States. You can't interfere with free trade. And when the Houthis do that, the United States needs to be very forceful, draw clear red lines, and make the Houthis and Iran, because Iran is pulling the strings, make them pay a much higher price for their actions than their benefit. It's as simple as that. If you give them more pain than what they're benefiting, that's the best chance you can get to stop them. How else can you do it? That's the only way to do it. So I think it's outrageous that the Houthis are doing it. And yes, we have fired back and they've stopped now. The United States should do it even more because
Yeah.
in that part of the world, the only thing that's respected is strength. It's sad, but who's attacking who? Nobody's attacking Yemen. Yemen is attacking other countries. It's like Israel. Israel's not attacking Gaza. Israel left Gaza in 2005 completely. They withdrew.
Exactly.
And the Palestinian people in Gaza elected Hamas.
Yeah.
So, like the Germans in the 1930s elected Hitler, there is a certain accountability and responsibility when you elect a group like that.
Yeah.
So,
And
that's the problem. And by the way, the
and
fighting could end tomorrow if Hamas surrenders. So
uh,
here everybody's putting the blame on Israel, telling Israel to have an immediate ceasefire, but that gives a win to Hamas. Why would Israel do that? Now, Hamas themselves have said they'll keep doing what they did October 7th,
what do you
4,
think
5,
about
6,
the
7 times.
negotiation to release the hostages?
Sorry.
How do you see the negotiations with Hamas to release the hostages? So, how do you can see, is it successful?
I'll tell you, it'll be successful only when Hamas feels that they're about to be destroyed. Obviously, the only card they have to play is the hostages.
Mhm.
And again, people don't think about this. Think how evil this is. These are innocent people waking up in the morning. They took a 72-year-old grandmother, a 6-month-old child, a 21-year-old civilian girl. I mean, they took people. And by the way, who are the people living along the border of Gaza in Israel? They're the poorest of Jews. That's why they're living there. It's the cheapest homes and the lowest rent.
Yeah.
They're also the most pro-Palestinians of
Yeah.
all the Jews in Israel is along the border. There was a woman, I think her name is Miriam Silverstein, who would go to Gaza, take people who have cancer and take them to Israeli hospitals to be treated. They murdered her anyway.
Mm, mm.
One has to be quite clear as
Yeah.
to who's right and who's wrong here. Israel is bombing civilians because Hamas is responsible. When you send rockets from a hospital
Yeah.
into an Israeli home and kill Israelis, the hospital loses its protected status.
This is the truth.
Right?
This is very sad. You are also an
Very
observer,
sad.
yeah, yeah, of the Abraham Accords. How do you see this experience? United Arab Emirates is part of it. Let's focus on the thriving economy of the UAE as you are a businessman. So, what is your explanation for the ability of the UAE to attract foreign direct investments?
I think very strong. I think the Dubai airport is the most traveled airport in the world for a reason. They're not going there for tourist purposes, maybe somewhat, but mostly they're going there for to do business. So I think the UAE offers a great opportunity for growth in business, and that speaks to the heart of the Abraham Accords. The whole idea of the Abraham Accords, I think, is to promote peace and stability in the region, so everybody could be uplifted, including Palestinians. You have to stop the fighting and the conflict and give everybody a better life, including the Palestinians. And that reminds me, Maria, going back to Hamas, they built these tunnels, which is a genius of engineering. I
Mm.
mean, hundreds of miles of tunnels where
Millions,
cars could drive
millions,
through,
millions of dollars was spent there.
billions of dollars. The reason why I say that is people would say, oh, Israel's keeping Gaza impoverished because they don't let an airport or a seaport. I want to tell you, if Hamas had applied the same ingenuity to building those tunnels to entrepreneurship, Gaza could be another Dubai or Singapore.
Of course.
It's all possible. It shows it. Even with adversity, you can create things. Look what they did. But
Yeah.
instead, they devoted it to murder and torture and rape. This is terrible. And what we need to see is Palestinians stand up and turn against Hamas and say, look what they're bringing us. Hamas has brought us destruction and death. And I'm hoping that Palestinians who become leaders will want to work with Israel. They don't have to like Israel, but that they will work with Israel to promote peace for everyone in the region.
Do you think that Marwan al-Barghouti, who is now in Israeli jail, can be the future president? He can.
Of course, I think he'd be a great choice.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see the Vision 2030. Saudi Arabia is entering a new historical phases. I need to know your opinion about the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. He is devoted to reform. He was, and he is also praised by many people or leaders of the world. So, how do you evaluate the major changes in Saudi Arabia that occurring right now?
The most hopeful aspect, arguably in the world, certainly in the Middle East, is the leadership and vision of Mohammed bin Salman. He is truly a visionary. He is trying to upgrade the whole region. And he's starting in the Middle East, and I think it could get beyond the Middle East to the world. He's very young. This is a man still in his 30s. He'll be a leader for the next 50, 60 years. He wants to do things that will help everyone. And I think he needs the support of the United States and other countries around the world. And I think he'll be an indisputable, great visionary and leader for the region. So I think it's probably the best development that I've seen in the Middle East in a very long time. His leadership.
Absolutely. Let's go back to the war in Lebanon, for example. Israel, there is like an expand to this war. How do you see this will end, and how Lebanese people are paying the price of a war they don't want? How Hezbollah is controlling Lebanon, and what is your approach here?
Yeah, this is, one of the consequences of Israel destroying so much of Gaza is to create a deterrence to Hezbollah from launching some similar attack on Israel. Basically, Israel wants the Lebanese who are not Hezbollah to turn to Hezbollah and say, do you see what Israel's doing in Gaza? We don't want it to happen in Lebanon. I don't want to lose my home. Don't attack Israel. Israel's not attacking Lebanon. It's Lebanon, it's Hezbollah that's attacking Israel. Israel is responding and defending themselves, as all nations have the right to do it. But at the end of the day, like Hamas, Hezbollah doesn't care about the people of Lebanon. They only care about their power and their money through corruption. That's what it is. That's all they care about. And we hope that the people of Lebanon will prevent Hezbollah from doing something. But that said, I think at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who believe Israel will eventually have to take out Hezbollah. And they may make Beirut a parking garage. Why? Because Hezbollah is 10 times stronger than Hamas. And Israel has to worry that if Hezbollah strikes first, it could destroy so much of Israel. Israel, at the end of the day, is a very tiny country. And the businesses and enterprises that matter are all along a small strip of land, 10 miles wide and 30 miles long along Israel's coast. It's concentrated in one area. Hezbollah focuses on that. They could cause huge damage to Israel. So Israeli military and political leaders have to sit back and think, do we wait for Hezbollah to do that and then attack? Or do we attack first? And that's a huge debate.
Maybe Israel in 2006 had the chance to destroy Hezbollah, but they didn't complete all the war was for 33 days. And now we see Hezbollah is using Lebanon as a headquarter, as a proxy to send weapons, to send drones to the fighters in Yemen, to Hamas and Gaza. It's
right.
They put
and by the way, and look at this. Let's just talk about the people. Putting aside whether you like Israel, don't like Israel. How are the people doing in Lebanon and Gaza before the war even? Horrible.
People in Lebanon want peace.
Exactly. The people in Lebanon want peace. It's a failed nation. They don't have electricity all during the day, right? The economy has collapsed. There's poverty everywhere. What has Hezbollah brought the people of Lebanon?
Misery.
They're using their conflict with Israel to maintain their power only. They don't care about Israel. They don't care about the Lebanese people. People who will rule want power and money, and that's what it's all about.
And
they want to keep the conflict with Israel going so they could justify their control of the country.
Their
But
existence, yeah, exactly.
how is it helping the Palestinian people? The Palestinian people, and how does it help the Lebanese people? The Lebanese people deserve a normal, good life. I
Exactly.
remember Lebanon; it was the Paris of the Middle East, right?
Yeah,
Until the Civil War in the mid-70s, Lebanon was an amazingly beautiful place, especially Beirut and Tripoli and other places.
yeah,
It's Hezbollah, radical extremism, Islamic extremism, is what has brought these countries to ruin. So I
mm.
hope that people wake up there and say, what has Hezbollah brought us? What has Hamas brought us? It has
And
brought them poverty and corruption. So I hope that people rise up against their rulers.
and say enough is enough. Let's go back to the US local news. I mean, many expect that Trump to beat President Biden in the race 2024. What result do you foresee? And how do
Yeah,
you follow the campaign?
right. According to the polls right now, it shows that Trump's ahead. But anything could happen between now and the election. Trump has many indictments against him. We'll see what happens there. Biden's campaign is gearing up. It's hard to know. I think the biggest issues that are affecting the American people are when it comes to the Biden presidency is two. One is his cognitive abilities. There are people who are very worried that he's too old. And the second concern is the border issue, that under Biden, he has let in millions of immigrants, just basically let the border be opened. And that deeply worries many Americans, most Americans, even Democrats. So
Mm,
that's going to hurt him a lot. What will help him is fear of Trump. There are people who see Trump as a threat to democracy.
mm,
Also, what will help Biden is the economy is doing very well. He brought inflation is down, the stock market is up, unemployment is low.
mm.
The fundamentals of the economy are very good for Biden now. And historically, people vote their pocketbooks, as the expression goes.
Do you think,
So that will serve
do you
Biden well.
think we will have a surprise of removing Biden and change it to another candidate like Michelle Obama or I don't know who else, maybe
That's there. That's
Kamala Harris
possible, but unlikely. Unlikely. I think that it's just too late. It's very hard to do that. That should have been done
before?
already.
Uh,
So
Tell us about your involvement in the effort to honor the legacy of Golda Meir.
it's interesting. Of all the questions you asked, what made you think of that, though, of all of them?
I think I saw you in that event at the Senate building. If you,
That's right. That's
huh?
right. I'm
Yeah.
just wondering. I think so. You're right. Well, yes. So we have an initiative to honor. You're quite right, because the questions you ask, I'm on television a lot, various networks. They ask those type of questions that you ask are very similar, but no one asked about the Golda Meir event. So
Mm,
yeah, we want to honor Golda Meir. We think she was a wonderful leader. She is kind. She helped protect Israel. She has
mm.
a beautiful legacy, and so we want to honor that. And I think it's important to acknowledge that.
My final question, tell us about your experience in philanthropy, like academic excellence, and how you preserve or what is your effort preserving the heritage of a nation abroad. I think that was a task that President Biden entrusted you to do.
Well, I'll start with philanthropy in general. I'm a big believer we're our brothers and sisters keeper. I'm a big believer in giving back and helping others that are disadvantaged. So my largest philanthropy is I have an orphanage in Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
I have put almost 30 children through college, all of them first generation college educated now. And I've had this orphanage for 26 years.
Perfect.
So and it's about changing people's lives, making a difference, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. My
That's
other big philanthropy is I have two people on staff part-time in Poland that look for mass graves, which is an overlooked aspect of the Holocaust, because when people think of the Holocaust, they tend to think of Auschwitz and the extermination camps, but they
mm,
were only operational in March of 1942,
mm,
a full 3 years after the war started. So what were the Germans doing in Poland, which was the epicenter of the Holocaust? before the extermination camps were industrialized for mass murder. They would just slaughter Jews, leave them in mass graves. My mission, find those graves, give these people some honor and dignity by giving them a formal burial. I have a Protestant minister, Catholic priest, and a Jewish rabbi and school children. And I have discovered to date, I don't remember the exact number, but it's over 30 mass graves in Poland. My other areas that you're referring to, yes, I was appointed first by President Bush and then reappointed by every president since. We just had a meeting today for the U.S. Commission of Historical Preservation, which is preserving America's heritage overseas in some way, and I look to do that. So I think we have to help each other. And when it comes to going back, we started with the Hamas war and Palestinians. I am deeply saddened about the loss of innocent Palestinian lives. It troubles me deeply. I think it's horrible. I think Israelis are tortured by it too. This is not how they want to fight a war. But at the end of the day, the truth be told, it's Hamas that is doing this to turn people against Israel. And they're doing a very good job of it because people are turning against Israel, but Israel has no choice. What are they to do? And you started the conversation about, about a two-state. Eventually, I'm a believer in a two-state solution too. The problem with agreeing to it now and why Bibi Netanyahu doesn't want to do it, and I'll explain why. People have to understand the Israeli psychology and understanding why Bibi is saying he doesn't want a Palestinian nation. He doesn't want a Palestinian nation right now, mostly because we don't want to reward mass slaughter and extermination of Jews. That's what it would be.
Yeah,
just think about it.
If this to happen again,
what?
He don't want this issue to happen again. It's like
right, but think about it. If let's say tomorrow we created a Palestinian nation. One, it's not going to solve anything just because Gaza is now Palestine and not Gaza under Hamas. I don't know what that's going to do, actually. I don't know, miracles are going to happen. So one, I don't know how that's even going to change things. But let's even say for a moment that happened. We created a Palestine in the West Bank and in Gaza. Let's say that happened. The problem is it's rewarding slaughter of Jews. Israel doesn't want the message to be that if you slaughter Jews, you'll reward it with a nation.
You get something.
It's a real problem. And I think that's why right now to do that, it's very hard. Also, Israel is going through such a hard time. Not since 75 years ago when they were created have they ever gone through such a difficult time. The economy is suffering badly. You have 100,000 people in northern Israel. Think about that and leave their homes, try to go into a hotel in southern Israel. People have been dislocated, Gaza. It's Israel's going through. For them to deal with a Palestinian nation now, I think is asking too much. They're fighting a war in Gaza. They have to think of a war with Hezbollah. They have to deal with the economy. They have to deal with the hostages' families. Israel is up to their neck with all these big issues.
It's a lot, yeah. I'm gonna thank you so much, Harley, for being in my show. I'm quite sure that my audience will like your thoughts. Thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll do more discussions like this in the future.
I hope so, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, bye now.
Hey, Maria Malouf here. Please click to like and subscribe to Maria Malouf TV YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.